Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unit 2. You've hopefully already read through some of what we have and learned about how um, General Augustus Fox Lane Pitt Rivers sort of changed everything in archaeology by beginning to record every uh, artifact and feature in an excavation, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, and really gave birth to archaeology as a modern discipline. What I'd like to talk about now is just how he sort of opened up the floodgates to a series of new techniques and new ideas in the discipline of archaeology that emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. So we're going to start with Sir William Flinders Petrie. This guy was an absolute genius in archaeology, beginning to write archaeological treatises when he was like 8 years old, which is huge. Uh, don't mind that. This is my cat just saying hello. And he was famous for his excavations in Egypt, where he came up with the concept of the technique known as seriation. Seriation is a fancy term for really a very simple idea, the idea that similar artifacts from similar time periods are going to look the same and have the same attributes. So as a result, for example, if we take a look at cars, looking at this picture of cars, you can tell which cars are older and which cars are more recent than the others simply by looking at them. If you can do this for cars or for cell phones or for fashions, then you can do it for things such as pottery or projectile points or other artifacts, and you can track those changes through time. This allowed archaeologists to be able to date artifacts that were found in contexts that were undatable because the same artifacts were found in datable contexts elsewhere. Another great couple of pioneers in archaeology were Sir Mortimer Wheeler and Kathleen Kenyon. Sir Mortimer Wheeler excavated in India and Kathleen Kenyon in the Middle East, but together they came up with really what's the defining technique for excavating an archaeological site, called the Wheeler-Kenyon or grid square method. In this method, rather than excavating in sort of haphazard trenches, you dig in squares that are set in some sort of grid pattern, leaving intact layers of earth called balks between them. By doing this, it allows you to, number one, mark the context of artifacts much more easily, and number two, by keeping these balks or intact layers of earth between excavations, you're able to look at the stratification or the layering of the earth one on top of another, with the most recent layers being on top, with the oldest layers being on the bottom. And you're able to actually see the history of the site on the side of your excavation. Another great early 20th century pioneer was V. Gordon Childe. He gave birth to a lot of great new ideas about how civilizations first emerged, the creation of cities, the development of agriculture. In particular, he was known for studies in studying the migration of ancient peoples and looking at how culture spreads from place to place and culture to culture. He called this process cultural diffusion, the idea of cultural processes, products, artifacts, ideas moving from place to place and culture to culture, whether through trade, migration, conquest, any number of reasons, but you would have this culture spread from one area to the other. And then finally, we have Julian Stewart. Julian Stewart excavated in the American Southwest, and he really focused on the concept of cultural ecology, which is basically the kind of dynamic relationship between human beings and their environment. So, when he looked at the Southwest, he saw how the indigenous peoples of the Southwest used the environment, the desert-like environment of the Southwest, to their advantage in creating early seasonal irrigation systems and farming systems, and really gave birth to what's sort of like the modern idea of environmental archaeology, looking at how past peoples adapted to their environment and what it can teach us about how we can adapt to our environment today and come up with more economic or more sustainable ways of surviving and thriving. So these are some new ideas and new techniques that emerged in the early 20th century, late 19th, early 20th century. And from new ideas and new techniques, we're going to move on from here to the new archaeology. See you soon.